why I, and many of us are failing in love. I've been thinking about this concept for a bit, and on my drive to work, something just hit me and I decided to share with you. And let me just break it down to how I understand it, right, in the context of this discussion. Now, first of all, what is love? We know that love is having an affection towards someone, having a certain positive feeling towards someone. But the idea that dawned on me is, and I have my notes here, we human beings, we are what we call social beings. We need to be connected to each other. So it's why clans and tribes and ethnics and groups are very important to us. It's why society as a whole is important to us. We need to have certain kind of identity to be part of something. A child needs to feel a certain kind of connection with his parents for the child to know that he or she feels loved. An individual needs a certain kind of connection with the society that he or she is in, and hopefully a positive connection. And then he will feel loved and cherished. And so love is really, in my understanding, having a positive connection with something or someone. And that's one of the reasons why I think that we are failing. We are failing in the context of love because we have forgotten that love is really about connections. And let me just delve deeper into what I wrote. So when that idea struck me, I was thinking, what is a connection, right? This is not a scientific definition or going online and stuff. This is just per my understanding, my observations in life. I asked myself, what do I mean when I say connection? And so in the context of what I'm talking about, a connection is really, what I wrote is, it's a cord between two people and the tension is kept, right? So when two things or two people feel connected, there is a certain bond, something that is holding them. In this context, let's call it a cord, right? And this cord doesn't need to be strained too much. If it's overly stretched, it's going to tear, and then there would not be any connection anymore. And if it's too loose and it's not really tended to, it's not really taken care of, it's just going to be loose and a lot of things are going to build on them. You're going to have moss build on it. There's going to be a lot of dust. And sometimes we may forget that we are even connected to each other or certain things, right? So I feel like love is really a positive connection between two people or you and something, whatever thing or group of people or person that you feel that you love. And so let's go one level deeper into the connection. The connection has to be honest, right? So when you, for example, those who love sports, when you love a football team, sometimes they make you happy when they are winning. And sometimes certain games when they lose, they make you sad. Sometimes they make you angry when you know that they could have won a game, but they did not play well or the tactics they used was wrong. And sometimes you know that team gives you the ability to share your frustration. You can go online and blast the team, as many of us go. We go online and express our negative feelings and our disappointment. And then we are okay to do that because we know that we are not going to be heavily criticized or heavily judged by this. And the ability to express this is what really, in my humble opinion, keeps the cord, the connection between you and the club going. And so I feel like for there to be a connection, it has to be honest. It has to be pure. As in, you express what you truly mean and what you truly feel. It has to be clear, right? You have to be able to express your happiness, your disappointment, your sadness. Sometimes when you know that when you are expressing it, you won't face any unnecessarily judgment. Of course, when you have to be careful how you express it, but when you are so afraid of even expressing the simplest things, the simplest thought you have because you're afraid of being judged, then know that the connection between you and that entity, that organization, that thing, that person is going to eventually fall off. Because like I said, I believe that love is a connection, and this is the cord between you and that connection, you and that person, and it's very important that we keep this. And so I was thinking about loving someone. When we say that you love someone or you are looking for love or someone loves you, what does that really mean? So in the context of this discussion that we are having, I sat down and I thought a bit, and I looked at people that I think I love, and I also believe that some of the people I love hopefully love me back, right? And I had to ask myself, why do they love me back? Why do we have this kind of connection, this bond, this cord between us? And I realized that majority of this has passed the test that I told you, the test of honesty, right? We are fairly honest with our feeling, and we don't intentionally try to use a lot of negative words towards each other. But even when we have negative sentiments or bad feelings, we are able to express our sadness, our anger, our frustration. And when we express that, we know that there may not be any harsh, extreme judgment on us. And I think that's very key. When there's not a lot of harsh judgment, it makes you safer to express yourself. And so it's very essential that for there to have a strong connection with someone or with a society or an entity, there should not be extreme judgment, or the person will be afraid to really express what they really feel or mean. How do you really feel connected to someone? I think that for me to say that I really love someone to that extreme, I have to be able to have a happiness connection with. What do I mean? I have to be able to express my happiness. If something makes me happy, I have to be able to express my happiness to that person, and that person should genuinely be happy for me. And vice versa, when that person is also happy, they should be able to pick up a phone or come to me and express their happiness to me, and I should be genuinely happy for them that this person have this kind of happiness. It doesn't necessarily mean that I have to have the happiness. They have it, and I am happy for them that they have that happiness. And so that's a sign, someone that you can share your genuine happiness with, and you know that they are going to be happy for you. They are not going to be jealous that you are happy and they are not happy. They are not going to be envious, even for that matter, that maybe you won a lottery or you are getting married and they are not. When there are these underlying things, then you have to be careful. The connection you have with that person is not right. And so the type of connection that I came up with are the happiness connection, the sadness connection, the mental connection, the physical connection, and the sexual connection. Let's talk about them. The physical connection. I believe because we are human beings, sometimes we like physical things that we will be able to touch, things that we will be able to see. And so there's this saying that out of mind, out of sight. I hope I got it right. I can't really recall, right? We need to be able to be in close proximity with the things that we say we love. And so proximity or physicalness is very important. Let me even name it too, the proximity connection. The proximity connection is very key, right? If you say that you love your God that you worship, there should be a certain proximity between you two. It shouldn't be very wide. You should be able to at least have a sense of how they feel, have a sense of who they are as a person, what makes them tick, what makes them happy, what makes them sad. If you say you love an individual, a human being as a person, it's often better when you are able to often see the person, right? Now we have technology, you can see the person through phones, technology, and whatnot. It's even better when they are with you in person. And so I think that that is very key. When people are in your close proximity, you're able to touch them, feel them, and sometimes have a sense of who they are in person. So that when we place 3 people there, you are able to identify the person that you say that you love, and vice versa, that person can identify you. Second thing was sadness connection. That when you are down, when you are sad, when you are frustrated, you are able to call the person that you say that you love, the person that you know that loves you, and express your sadness, your frustrations, things that are really worrying you. And they should be sad with you. They should be able to share your sadness with you. And you know, in so doing, they're able to take some of the load off you, right? Because they say that sharing is caring, right? So when you share, at least you are caring enough that I love you and I want to share my thoughts with you. And they are also open to the idea that you are sharing your load with me. This is not the time for me to judge you. This is not the time to also share my sadness with you. Oh yeah, guess what happened to me? A similar thing happened to me and mine was even way worse. No. And someone is sharing their sadness with you, this is the time that you be there for them, be empathic and sympathetic towards them, listen to them and take some of their sadness off them, right? Let them offload a bit of you. That is what friends are for. And so part of the connection is having someone that you can share your sadness with genuinely, and they would help you at least offload some, and they are not even going to make it worse for you. So another type of connection is the mental connection. This is the type of connection where you are able to explore your mind with someone. You are able to delve into the weirdness of your mind, right? You are able to get comfortable and talk about the weird things you think about, what makes you happy. I remember there's a point when I made a friend and I was just telling the person how just technology makes me happy. When I see technological progress, how phones have grown, how technology have internet, 5G, we have all these things, how much they have moved us as mankind forward. Even cars, I'm quite intrigued and I'm fascinated by them. And this friend, she didn't care about technology, but she kept quiet and asked questions because she was intrigued and she could sense the passion. And she was just intrigued with how much I was passionate about technology and data as a whole. And that is the kind of connection that I'm talking about, that you are able to share the depth of your mind, the weirdness of your mind, what makes you unique to someone. Sometimes they are not always white, sometimes they can be gray, sometimes they can be dark. But the person understands you. The person at least tries to understand you and he listens to you. And they are also able to do the same for you. And it's very, very key, right? So you understand that we are different beings. I'm not trying to force you to be like me. You are also not forcing me to be like you, but we are able to really express ourselves, what makes our minds unique, and we hear each other out. We may not share the same ideology and stuff, but we are able to connect on that level. And so have you ever had a conversation with someone that you feel like, man, I had such a strong connection with this person? Why? Probably because the person was open enough and heard you share your happiness, your sadness, your mental uniqueness with them, and they listened to you. They were highly intrigued. They didn't just make it about themselves, they heard you out. And so, sometimes you have certain conversations and you're like, wow, I had this connection with someone. And I think that is why we are failing as a society. We are really forgetting that we are people that need to connect and people that need to bond. And we are failing that part of connection. One last thing that I skipped, I left it for the last, the connection, was sexual connection. And so many of us want to have a life partner as we are getting older, hopefully spend the rest of our lives with someone at the right time. And I think that sexual connection is very, very important, right? You should be able to connect with someone sexually, and to the extent that you are able to sexually express yourself and do things that are sexually pleasing for you, and hopefully the person also find them sexually pleasing, right? They are not harming to either of you, and it's consensual between the two of you. What I have to say is that you have to be careful that sexual connection is not the first you build. In fact, it is very dangerous if that becomes the first connection that you build with someone, because it's one of the most powerful connections that will most likely blur other things, because sexual connection merges so many of the other connections that I spoke about, right? Because when you are sexually connected with someone, the person then gets to be in close proximity with you. So the person has already bridged your proximity connection, most likely your happiness connection, because for most of us, good sex makes people happy, generally speaking. And sometimes it makes people cry and sad. And so if you're not careful and you start with sex, you are getting the lines blurred up, and then you'll be forced to think that you are connected with the other things, when in essence you are not. You've just made the unfortunate mistake of using sex to blur things out. I am not saying that when you start with sex it's going to be bad, but I'm saying that when you start with sex it's more likely going to be bad, because sex encompasses a lot of the other connections that I've said about. And so you have to be careful. And it's even nicer when you build connections with people on these levels, the proximity, happiness, sadness, physical, mental, before sex. It's really nice. Then everything kind of becomes a complete circle and you are really able to enjoy. If you are fortunate enough to be able to experience 4 of this, that's outside sex, then you would feel like this person really gets me. I'm really connected to this person. I feel like we have a connection. Have you ever used that phrase before? Have you heard that phrase before? We have a connection. Or, oh, I spoke to this person and we clicked. What does that mean? In my understanding, you guys were able to just build on the connections. You connected on so many levels, the happiness, the sadness, the mental, and the physical probably. And so this is the reason why I think that we are failing in love, right? I feel like we are in a hurry. Sex has now become the norm in our society, that we jump quickly to sex and then we fail to understand that there are other levels of connection that we need to build, that it's better to understand ourselves and have that bond between us. And then on top of that, the icing on the cake is sex, right? And so make sure that you have a connection with someone. Make sure that you have a bond with someone on these levels. It's always better that way before sex come up. There are a few instances where people are able to start with sex and then they grow together, right? They are able to build the other ones. But I'm saying that makes it more difficult, and that's a riskier move. And so at least it's good to know. Moving forward, how are you able to fix your failing love issues? My failing love issues. How do we fix our failing love issues? I come up with only 2 points. I think that the first thing is you have to know yourself. Know yourself as a person, right? At least try to spend some quality time with yourself, your thoughts. Many of us cannot be sit down in a quiet room alone with our thoughts, without any device, no book, no internet, nothing. Just for an hour, just for 30 minutes. Many of us cannot. We are somehow afraid of our own thoughts, afraid to be alone with ourselves. Many of us can't even drive alone, a quiet ride, no phone call, no radio, nothing. We can't do that. I think that you should be able to know yourself to the level where you would be able to express yourself. What I mean by know yourself is, you remember the connections we spoke about? Know what makes you happy, right? At least have an idea what makes you happy. Know what makes you sad. Have an idea of what intrigues you mentally. What are your hobbies? What do you like as a person? What really irks you as a person? What moves you as a person? These are part of the mental connection. Many of us don't know this about ourselves. We don't even have hobbies. We haven't taken time to try things in life for ourselves. And we are trying to try that with someone else. So the first point is know yourself. Now, before we go to the second one, know that you will never finish knowing yourself, but at least spend time with yourself to know enough about yourself, right? What moves you? What gets you going? What ticks you? What makes you happy? What makes you sad? What moves you mentally? What intrigues you? What are your hobbies? Build some hobbies for yourself. And so knowing yourself is key to actually have a good connection in marriage, to have a good connection with love. The second point is to be able to express yourself clearly, that whoever you are trying to express yourself to understands you, right? I feel like many of us are not able to express ourselves. We don't even know ourselves, and the few that know themselves, they can't even express themselves. They are not able to articulate properly what they like, what they don't like, without being angry. You know, many of us, before we can talk, we have to be angry and shout. No, you should be able to have calm conversations, sit down conversations that, look, these things make me happy. These things are things at the moment I am aware that makes me sad. These are the moment my hobbies, things that I'm doing now. Have something to do and be able to articulate clearly for the other person. Because if you don't, how can you build a connection when you yourself can't express the very things that make you happy? You yourself cannot articulate properly what makes you sad. People cannot articulate their issues, their worries in life and stuff. And so it's become very difficult that if you can't do that for yourself, how do you expect someone else to be able to understand the very thing you are not able to articulate? Don't you think it's a bit unfair? And so yeah, these are the two things. Know yourself and start learning to articulate yourself. One of the best way I was able to do is to write my thoughts down. I pick a piece of paper and I start writing what makes me happy. And I couldn't write anything. I remember the first thing I wrote down was food. I knew that good food made me happy. And I play a lot of video games. I play a lot, especially football, right? FIFA on PlayStation. So I knew that FIFA makes me happy. So with time, because I had this down on my phone, what makes me happy, I started being aware, or I opened myself to be aware of what makes me happy. And eventually I built a list of what makes me happy. Then I moved to what makes me sad, what gets me angry. Because I knew these things, it was easier for me to articulate these things. And so that's how I did it for myself. And so I hope that at least you've gained some skills or some insight about why we are failing in love, why we are failing as a people, and hopefully some ways that you can improve. But again, what do I know? I'm just a naive observer. I know nothing.